Students of science, this particular summary is going to be on redefining your relationship to obstacles. So, as a student of science, we are always problem solving. So if it's not that challenging word problem that's getting in front of you, that maybe has you thinking a certain way about how you feel about it, it's also potential things in life that can sometimes have us trying to figure out, what is our attitude around this challenge that we're facing. And what this particular lesson does is it begins to help you better understand and have awareness around your mentality. Do you have an empowered mentality versus a powerless mentality? And the different scenarios go about really having you think about things that aren't always black or white. They kind of that gray area where you're like, I could go one way or the other, and begin to dissect out what are the factors, what are the conditions that allow you to make different decisions when you are faced with a challenge. So at the end of the day, our mindset moving into an obstacle or a challenge and believing that we can get through it, and then also making sure that our mentality is such where we're looking for that solution and we know that it exists, and maybe not overreacting or reacting a certain way to the things that come up in front of us can be the biggest difference between getting to the other side and getting to the other side with grace. So at the end of the day, win. All right, welcome. Today's workshop is going to be on redefining your relationship to obstacles. We're going to have a lot of fun with one another. People in virtual land, people here in physical land. And let's go ahead and start with this very first quote. Could you read that quote first real quick?
As long as a man stands in his own way, everything seems to be in his way.
All right, so what do you think Mr. Emerson is trying to say with that quote?
That as long as we know where we are and we stick to it, everything's gonna be everything's gonna be it's gonna align with what we are.
Maybe. Anybody want to add anything? Challenge that? Subtract anything from that? As long as a man stands in his own way, everything seems to be in his way. Anybody in virtual land? Go ahead, Vicky.
I thought that the quote was talking about how someone can really be in their own head, that it stops them from achieving things. Like someone can keep on they can't get over their mistakes and it just stays in their head. So then they limit themselves and they don't see themselves as someone who can achieve as much.
Okay. Like that, anybody else?
That you are everything that stands in your way of success.
He said you are everything that stands in your way of success. All right, well, we just hypothesizing on things. We're gonna figure out what this means to us, as we kind of move through the game. All right, so I'll just read this very first part of this paragraph afterwards. As a student of science, your relationship with obstacles and challenges are critical to your long-term success. For instance, the process of teaching students how to make new discoveries in math and science is through teaching basic concepts. Then you graduate to intermediate concepts and matriculate to advanced concepts and then tackle the unknown. So the concepts don't get any easier to comprehend, but your relationship to those challenges needs to change. And so I can remember when I first started off as a student of science at the community college, believing that I was maybe one exam away from dropping out of my major, right? I'm like, damn, if I don't pass this exam, am I gonna change my major? Then I started gaining a little bit more confidence. But then I was thinking like, okay, well, is this class gonna be the limiting step that's gonna stop me from getting to this major? And then I started gaining confidence in my ability to answer more complicated problems and trust in myself and trust in my intuition, to then being in grad school and tackling the unknown, right? So it was like these steps where I was trying to prove to myself along the way that I was worthy enough, that I was smart enough. But if you believe that you're not capable, then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You will never be capable. And your relationships and your attitude towards challenges, in my mind, is critical. Especially when you're in environments where it's competitive, there's perceived pressure on you, and you may have people who are highly intellectual, but sometimes highly emotionally dysfunctional. They don't always go hand in hand. Just because you got a fast processor and a good, strong mind with a photographic memory doesn't mean that you have emotional intelligence. You can get psyched out because they're like, damn, so you haven't solved that yet? I mean, come on, like, just messing with you, just tapping on the table as you guys are studying, and they're just doing that because they want to rattle you and they want to move on. And then you like, so what do? Do you lie? And you're like, oh yeah, I know that. And they're like, okay, let's go. Versus like, nah, I don't know it. I'm not going nowhere now. Just stop, pull back. let's go in. But if you don't believe that you are capable enough, then it's a lot easier to be like, yeah, let's go when you really don't know. Maybe, right? But we just started the conversation. All right. But the goal is to find a way that works for you to dissect the positive and negative aspects of your personality. That requires honesty, right? That requires integrity, to understand your talents and your strengths, and to optimize your approach. What is your approach to solve this problem? What is your approach to overcome this challenge? Analyze your process. That's another way of saying analyze the steps you're taking to be successful, and change course accordingly. If things don't work, we don't double down on the same thing that didn't work the first time. At least change a little bit. Don't just be like, yeah, I'm gonna try the same thing and just hope for a different result. So one of the things that I try to do is I try to create metaphors that allow me to take something, a concept, and to better understand it so I can have my own personal meaning of it. Right? Like, and that was my way of, when I was learning things in school, to make it mine. Right? To make it mine and own it so I can own it for years to come. So I want somebody, maybe Tom, go ahead and read The Car That Could, which is my metaphor that I came up with. But the good thing about me is that I'm really good at making up stuff. And it don't make sure it's true or not, but it's just fun making up stuff. But go ahead, Tom, can you read that
First part?
yeah, The Car That Could.
The car is the vehicle we are using to get to our destination in life. It has a solid engine that runs on two types of gasoline. The first is a high octane gasoline in its purest form, which is composed of passion. This gas has renewable properties where you can use 3/4 of your tank of gasoline and realize you still have half a tank left.
Stop. So what am I saying in that first part? About passion and that connection that I'm trying to make between passion and a renewable type of gasoline, Tom.
I think gasoline is like, it burns pretty fast and it almost like passion, give you the instant drive. But, it burns, but it's not renewable. That means you have to find a way to recharge yourself. like the EV cars did, I think it's passion is something that drive you, push you, give you the momentum, but you have to find a system that to maintain that, that same level of passion, that's what renewable meant, I would say.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, it's the way our bodies are built and designed is that when we're doing things we're passionate about, we have hormones and pheromones that get secreted that make us feel good. So we can continue to do that thing that we're passionate about. You could work all day doing a job for the money that you don't like, and you could be passionate about music, and you get home at midnight, you open up your little studio in your room, you're going to 4 a.m. You don't even think of time doesn't even exist anymore because you're doing something you're passionate about. It's like, where did that energy come from? It came from the passion, right? All right, keep going, Tom.
Unfortunately, not every kind of activity endeavor you pursue in life will be driven on this gasoline. Then there is motivational factor brand of gasoline that is lower in octane. Depending on the motivational factor, it can work well with your sub-engine that can be appropriate, can be the appropriate brand to get you to a destination or not.
So we got passion, which is renewable gasoline, and then for everything that we do in life, we've had workshops on what's the difference between passion and motivation and motivational factors. A motivational factor could be money, it could be power, it could be benefits to society, it could be being significant, right? Every time we do something, we're suggesting you should know why you're doing it. So when that obstacle gets in front of you, you can ask yourself, well, I'm doing this. I want to be a medical doctor because my grandma wants me to be a medical doctor, and I could be the first one in the family. Okay, I'm in medical school, but I'm getting beat down on these 24-hour shifts in the hospital. Why am I doing this again? Oh, at my grandma. Okay, that motivational factor is not enough now. Or I want to be a medical doctor because I really like kids and I want to heal sick kids. That's enough. Okay, I'm going to connect to that. I'm going to use that as my gasoline to move forward because that motivational factor is enough. Does that make sense? So if you're clear on why you're doing something, on what's driving it, right? In this scenario, what gasoline you're using, then you can know, is that enough? But if it's something you're passionate about, that's the most purest gas you can have. And, you can do something passionate and not burn out for the rest of your life. And be like, I'm good, because it's not even work anymore. You're just having fun. You're just killing it. All right. So, the other thing that we have to understand is the hardware of the engine, which I'm equating to your intellectual self-awareness. That's your ability to understand the processor that you have. In this case, what engine do you have? Is it a V4? Is it a V6? Is it a V8? With some dual cams on that mug? So it's critical to understand what you're working with so you can figure out what speed to drive the car on your journey. Right? Because if you got a VW Bug, you can't go from 0 to 60 in 5.43 seconds. It's going to take you about 20 seconds in that VW Bug with that engine. But if you got a Lucid, or you got a Porsche, then you may get there in like 2.25, 2.5, and 3, right? We're not going to talk about other kinds of cars that are faster back here. But y'all know what I'm talking about, right? In addition, your emotional state of awareness, you're the driver. Is it causing you to wobble and go off the road because a little rabbit runs across and it freaks you out? Or it could be a teacher that intimidates you. It could be somebody in your class that that rattles you because you don't like their personality or something about them, have you feeling a certain way, right? So your ability to be able to manage your mindset and stay focused as you're on this journey, your ability to manage fear and doubt is either going to hinder you or help you get to that end goal destination, right? Potentially. Do you have a good roadmap, action plan to reach your destination that can recalibrate and change course accordingly? Right? Driving blind, without the ability to see where you are? How are you going to get to your destination if you don't really have a game plan? And it doesn't have to be something that's fixed. It can be something that you can adapt along the way. Because what I'm suggesting is that there's infinite possibilities for you to get to where you want to get to in life. It's nice to have a game plan, and then that allows you to then move along in that direction, but you still want to be open to how the universe may adjust it in a way that actually may even sometimes be better than what you originally came up with. Does that make sense? Talk to me. Come on, y'all. Y'all thinking about something, because if you're not, I'm doing my job all wrong. But I could be doing it wrong though too.
I have to say I agree. In order for you to be able to see the vision, you have to have a game plan. And I feel like once you have that game plan and you have it written down and even just a little brainstorm, but as long as you have a direction of where you're going and you're meeting those little goals, I feel like not only is it building confidence, but you're seeing like, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel, like it's getting closer to what you're trying to achieve. So game planning and building those strategies is definitely important.
Yeah, and if we wanna get deep with it real quick, because we ain't got nothing else better to do, it's that game plan for me, that roadmap. It's almost like I'm energetically creating a blueprint. Right? I'm saying that like this is my energetic structure of how I want to see this happen. But in the physical realm, we actually have to then put work in, or it's our actions that adds that manifests that, right? You can't just have a good idea and sit back and kick it, right? Like you actually have to then put the work in to manifest it. But at least that roadmap is that initial kind of, blueprint, that energetic blueprint. But that's the first part of the game. You still have to put some meat on the bones, right? So when you're able to like redefine your relationship to obstacle, then you're able to eliminate along the way the bad habits that we all have. We all have them, right? I mean, I knew when I was in school, my bad habit was I like playing video games, and I used to like watching music videos. So I made sure I never had cable when I was in college. I don't even have cable now because I knew that I would be up real late at night watching music videos when I should probably be sleeping, right? And then with the video games, I had to just make sure that I just was selective with it. But y'all got video games on your phones. You guys can be playing video games anywhere and everywhere to stop, stopping in your car somewhere, like it's just, so, and then you guys got the TikToks and the Snapchats and the Vines and all that other kind of stuff. Like, you have to know how to manage your bad habits so they don't hinder you from getting to your destination. And everyone's different. I was kind of hardcore back when I was in science, as a student. And if I'm going to the finals, you can't even get a hold of me 2 weeks leading up into my finals. I mean, we didn't have cell phones as rampant back then, but my voicemail, was basically like, call me in 2 weeks when the finals are done. The only way you could get a hold of me is if you actually were studying with me. I'm like, no. I'm locked in. I even have my own little rituals where I used to wear this beanie cap on my head through finals, and I never took it off the whole 2 weeks. I'm taking a shower with the beanie cap on. In my mind, I was like, any information that's going in, this beanie cap's gonna keep it there. But you know, it is funny. But my point being is that like during that time of my life, I had the ability to allocate my time in that way, and that's not always the case. But my point being is that when I had free time, I was locking in and I wasn't playing. So at the end of the day, the keys to succeeding are to truly know all that you're working with, right? The engine that you have, the memory that you have, your ability to process information and master it, and understanding that you will learn who you are through the obstacles and challenges that you face. That's the blessing that I believe that we all get as students of science. Every single class, every single concept gives you the ability to figure out who you are in that moment. Do I tap out easy? Do I lean in? What's my mindset? Do I have fear? Right? Am I arrogant? Am I overconfident? Am I humble? Where am I in that moment? And do I find a way to get through it? And as I get through it, I learn something about myself. And if I don't get through it, I learn something about myself. So the next time, I'm that much more prepared or stronger or have more awareness about how to win. Right? Talk to me, y'all. What you thinking? Because you're doing a whole lot of thinking right there, and I can see you thinking. No thoughts? No comments?
And I think it's right. I always find myself like overthinking before tests, before exams, and all that. And last time I was thinking like, what's something I'm facing, and it's like making it harder for me, because I was like feeling not that confident, and I'm not like that. I know I'm not someone who doesn't feel sure about what he's doing. And I was like, why am I not feeling sure about this? And then I found out that it was like, well, part of it was that English is not my first language, and I'm still learning. I'm like, oh, so I'm not that confident in English. And I started working on that, because it was like, yeah, I need to face this and do it better.
I like what you said. I need to face this, so you're not running away. Anybody else have any thoughts? Any comments?
Yes, for me, I feel like it's just building better study habits and just having more confidence in my work, but also holding myself accountable. So I like the idea of the roadmaps, because once you have the roadmaps, you're seeing it. And if you don't achieve one of those goals by a certain timeline, you're holding yourself accountable. Well, for me, if I don't write it down, it's not real. But once it's written, like, okay, yeah, no, it's time to live up to what I'm writing. So, and it's just building, those better study habits where I'm, focused more, putting that time away where it's just no phone, no nothing, no social media, no TV in the background, just, music and, that's like lo-fi, and just my homework, and just focus on that. If that's me making more notes or flashcards, whatever it is, but just using that time for that.
Nice, thank you. And I like this idea of holding ourselves accountable. And that's going to look different for each person. But you kind of have to figure out what that looks like for you, and is it actually effective? And so, with you, Jackie, being able to write things down and see it somewhere, you can say to yourself, okay, I wrote it down, I'm committing to it, I went through this act, I'm gonna hold myself accountable. For me, it was just saying it out loud. Like, I would say it out loud, but to people, so they could hear me say it out loud. And by me saying it out loud and someone else heard it, then I'm like, okay, I gotta make it happen, right? Because I wanted to be a person of my word, and that was my way. And so what people didn't really understand is, it's like, so when I started grad school, my goal was to graduate in 4 years. And the average person in my program takes 6.5 years. But I'm saying it out loud to the people in my cohort, the other 24 other people in my cohort, and they're like, Fred, people take 6.5. I'm like, yeah, but what that got to do with me? I said, you just heard what I said. I'm getting up out of here in 4 years, right? So it was this ongoing joke, right? But they're like, just like, we're in our second year, Fred. Are you going to finish in 2 more years? Like they were like joking with me, but what they didn't know was is that like I'm putting it down in the lab. I'm putting in like 16, 18-hour days. I'm getting it, right? Third year comes, they're like, so Fred, you got about a year left. How's it going, right? I said, well, last year I had a chance. I discovered 5 genes. I said, right now we're starting to write the first paper up. I already got a publication in PNS already, Proceeding National Academy of Sciences. I said, we'll see. And they're like, okay. And so, did I finish in 4 years? No. I finished in 5. But I took a month off on my 4th year and went to Southeast Asia on vacation and then brought my thesis and slid out in 5. But my point being is that by me even saying it, that was like I put my soul on it. I'm coming at this with everything. And if I didn't have that kind of passion or determination or holding myself accountable, then I probably would have finished 6.5 like everybody else. So, right? Like, I was driven. But you have to figure out how to activate that for you. What's going to put that in there for you? Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's like you're lighting that fire. Like I feel like I do that to myself too, like where I'm just causing myself to have that pressure. Like, okay, Jackie, it's time to lock in. Like, and I feel once I have that extra, like it just helps me just to kind of just get everything done, but just to kind of go higher. Like, okay, now I'm done with all my assignments. Now I want to go for the extra credit. Like, how can I get the best grade and make sure that I'm finishing the semester strong? And it's just, but I have to light that fire in order for me to have like that drive and that passion. Because if not, I'll just go in and not being motivated at all. Like I have to kind of just self-talk and motivate myself every day to kind of light it up.
And you bring up a good point because the thing is that if you're not there yet and you have bad habits and in the past you said stuff and you just never really delivered on them, then you have to take these small steps. Right? Like, I'm not saying everybody can handle that smoke right up front. But it's just, how do you find those small wins? And then get that confidence for the bigger wins, and then get that confidence, be like, okay, I feel like I can conquer the world, right? But, Rome wasn't built in a day. You still have to be able to assess yourself and say, whatever I want to do now, I'm going to push myself to be a little bit outside of what I had done before, right? I'm going to stretch myself a little bit. I'm not going to be in my comfort zone, and everything that I do in regards to studying is comfortable to me. All the people that I study with, they're always either just as smart as me or lower because I want to feel like I'm the smartest person in the room, but maybe you should be studying with somebody who's smarter than you so you can learn a little something. You know what I'm saying? Like all those things that sometimes we do, not none of y'all, other people, that they're still hindering themselves from growing fully. So, all right. So the first question is it possible to learn from every experience that you have in life? And this is just one of those quick, like, Barbara, like, how you feeling about this? Do you feel like you can learn from everything that happens to you in life?
I would say so. I mean, wisdom is priceless. So anything life can guide us to something if we give the meaning for it.
Okay. People agree with that? Okay. So what I would say is that I agree. The things that happen to you in life are meaningless. You give it meaning.
Yes.
You give it meaning, right? So if you give it meaning by that thing that happened and you say to yourself, how can I grow from it? Then you expand. But if you give it meaning where, this just happened to me, there's nothing I can learn from this, then you lose the opportunity to grow. And that's why two different people can experience the same thing and have two different responses. And one person grow and expand from it, and the other person doesn't. But that's the power that we all have. is we give the things that happen to us meaning. And I'm just challenging you to not miss the lesson, to not miss the growth, because you may move into victimhood, or I'm just powerless, or whatever story that you may play out in your mind, versus, damn, hold on, okay, I do this sometimes, oh, okay, nah, okay, I can make sure that this never happens again because of this. I mean, whatever that thing is that has you turn those keys in a way that I'm going to learn something from it. What do you guys think? Talk to me.
I think, like me, I'm a person with hindsight. That means I know what to do at a situation when a situation happens, unfolds. So I tend to reflect on the past experience to really think of what steps I should take. And I mean, I gotta learn from those experiences to to help me better handle those new situations in life.
Yeah. No, it's people sometimes say, especially when they're doing something new, I don't have experience. And then they're shy about getting the experience, and then they're tiptoe around what they actually do because they don't want to make a mistake. And just instead of saying, I'm going to do my best thinking now based on where I'm at, and whatever happens, I'm going to find a way to learn from it and grow. But I'm going to do the best thinking I can based on where I know right now. And maybe I'm going to look and try to get other people to give me their thinking on it too and weigh that. All right, so exercise 1. Let me have Max, go ahead and read that quote for us for exercise 1. Because I love scenarios, and so we got to get into some controversy real quick, because that's when people talk about how they really feel about stuff.
Is it the you're a student one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're a student in medical school at a prestigious university. You're a person of color in an environment where few people in your class are persons of color. One day you're waiting in your car to study with one of your classmates in front of the university's student housing complex. When 3 police cars approach your car, one police officer approaches your car and asks you why you're in the front of the housing complex. You mention that you're waiting for a friend to come out. They question you for 5 minutes about the details of where your friend lives, her phone number, and address, and why you were there before you mention that you're going with your friend to study. At that point, realizing that you might be a student, the officer asks for your student ID card and lets you go. Before the officer leaves, you ask why they approached your car in the first place when you weren't doing anything. They reply that 3 different people from the complex called the police to report a suspicious car with a person of color in it who might be looking to steal something. How would you respond in this situation?
All right. What would you do? What would you do? What would you do? We talking about some real life type of stuff around here. What would you do, Max? Because I see you grinning. And you thinking as you grinning, so
Oh, no, yeah.
share your thoughts.
I mean, it's not the first time that would be like, that's not the first time that would have happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, what will you do? Just comply and go along your day? You know, it's what I've done in the past. Like one time, like I used to live in Colorado in like a suburban kind of town, city. And like I decided to go jog at night. But like I was in like sweatpants, like Nike sweatpants, like running shoes.
And a hoodie.
No, not even a hoodie. Just like
I just played
it was
with
just
you.
like, just like a running shirt even too. Like, but I
It was
got
black
stopped.
though. It was dark. It was a dark running shirt.
But yeah, I got stopped. And I was like, you fit the description for whatever. It's like, man, I have like earbuds on, like I'm just taking a night jog, but you know, you just gotta comply and know your place, I guess. But not necessarily like know your place or let it like kind of happen to you. You just kind of have to realize that if you do anything,
it's gonna be bad for you or whatever. It's supposed to like just kind of letting it go and knowing like that the system is kind of like built in that way, and you can't let it like affect you in a way that like, oh man, like this happens. Like just let it know that it's like part of a system. If like people are complaining about whatever, then just let it go, I guess. Yeah.
All right. So comply, find a way to let it go. We also Max brought up know your place. How are other people feeling about this?
I didn't mean like in know your place, but it's more like know how to play the game, right? And be smart about it. Like if you start resisting and start like arguing, and that's gonna build more suspicion upon you, as opposed to just complying because you're not doing anything wrong. And knowing that like if you start like fighting in that stance, like out in the middle of the road against like a police officer, like there's not gonna be anything good for you that's gonna come out of that. So like knowing like your part in the bigger system, that it's a messed up system, but just knowing how you can navigate through that. And you have, as a person of color, you have to know how to navigate through those systems and not become part of the others, like part of a smaller system, which is the criminal, like the criminal system. Like if you take a certain step, you could end up in that part of the bigger system. So I think that knowing how to navigate through it is what I meant by knowing your place.
All right, so I'm gonna paraphrase that and make sure I don't paraphrase it in a way that's not cool. But I think you're kind of talking more about situational awareness.
Yeah, it's like situational awareness, as opposed to like not to say like knowing your place. I may have like worded that wrong, but like situational awareness to where you know how to react in certain situations where like they're checking your ID. You have to know how to react in those kind of situations.
Would anybody act anywhere differently? Okay. You want to share that out loud?
Yeah, I would say don't fall into the trap of trying to prove your innocence. Just let them prove that you did it. Because it's just like in math. If you need to prove something true, it might be difficult. But if you disapprove it, you just give a counter example. So don't fall into the trap of trying to prove your innocence. Just let them provide a proof that you really did it.
Okay, I like that. That's kind of more of a passive, but can be aggressive, but a passive stance, like the onus is on you to prove whatever your assumptions are about me. Okay. Anybody else want to share anything?
Yeah, I think that's a way for a person of color, to find legal recourse, because what the police did was not warranted. So there might be a way, to ask for why they justify for this way of cheating me or like that. I mean, there might be a way to record that incident and probably, like post it to share with the community and to have everybody aware of the situation. And the thing happened to me, but I don't want it to record or like to happen to other people. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay, so I like that. So Tom is saying, is there a way to still have power in that situation? Because maybe you know your law, you maybe know your rights, maybe you find a way to document it, so then you can maybe expose what these people's approach may have been to dealing with you. But he's thinking in a very proactive way of maybe finding ways to still have situational awareness, right? But not necessarily laying down like a lamb and saying, I have no power. All right, good stuff to think about. So what is the best description of your feelings and your approach to deal with the scenario above? So we kind of have anger, sadness, creativity. Was it an irrational thought? Did you detach from the situation? Some people may go out of their body because they don't want to, you know, have to deal with what's in front of them. Like, what did you have fear? What were the emotions running through you if you kind of put yourself into this situation that may have bubbled up as you were like reading about it? And you know, we're not judging anybody because we're all human. And it's good to understand what our approach is, because I don't want to claim this happens to anybody. But if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, you want to figure out how to navigate that in the best way possible, right? What are folks thinking? Anybody in virtual land? What about you, Vicky?
I just saw this option right now, but it's like detached from the situation. Um, for me, I think like I don't want to see it as like personal maybe, or like I don't want to let it affect me too much, so I try to like not think about it as much. And then I also agree with, I think someone else said this earlier, someone from virtual land, like let them try to prove why you might be like guilty of something rather than trying to defend yourself and trying to prove that you didn't do something. But again, like I think for me, I will like detach myself from situations that like make me uncomfortable.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Go ahead.
I just want to add real quick with what Max said, because I kind of resonate with what you said. I know that you may have not meant it like that, but I kind of feel you when you say like you kind of gotta know your place. I know you kind of meant more like social, like situational awareness, but I kind of agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I know that I've been in situations more than once, and I've been on both sides. Right? I've been to the place where I was a little more aggressive about it. 'Cause I knew I didn't do anything wrong, but I was also young, and what that ended up doing, causing a lot more problems than solutions at that point. Versus the other way, saying, okay, look, this ain't the time right now to be a lawyer and argue and I'm on right, I get it, I can spout all the law if I want to. I have lawyer friends, but then it isn't the time right now to exert that kind of power. Maybe right now my power is to say, okay, I'm gonna comply at the moment. I'm gonna come back and revisit this, because that's the power I have as a citizen, right? I'm gonna come back and revisit it, but right now, it ain't the time to be sitting here arguing with a cop at 12 a.m. at night when a whole bunch of other stuff is going around. Ain't the moment for that. So I guess that kind of what you meant was say, hey, you kind of gotta know where you're at, know your place a little bit. Like, yes, I mean, yeah. So anyways, that's one kind of
Yeah.
add that in there a little bit.
My kids are like really young. They're like, you know, 10, 7, and 6. But there's a movie, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. It's called Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee, and I showed him that movie. Well, parts of the movie. But especially like the part with the radio, he gets taken down, and it's like, you know, at the end of the day, he's like, you're not gonna win. It's you fighting against a system that it's seen people that look like us getting shot and whatever, so it's just not worth it. We might as well just save it for the lawyers, right? If anyone's going to jail or whatever unjustly, then it's better to do it in a smart way than sitting there and arguing with the cop at 12 o'clock at night, you know. It's just the way that and it is just the way it is. And that's what it is.
All right, so we're going to talk about what characteristics would be for someone who has an empowered mentality during difficult times. Like when they're trying to find a solution during a challenge that's in front of them, and they have an empowered mentality, how they're going to think about that, or how they're going to move and maneuver in that situation.
Determination.
Determination?
Determination.
Okay. And detach that determination to what? You got to give me a little bit more context.
Like for example, if they had the challenge and they had the plan to go through it, they have to be determined about what they want, because you know you can easily be like, oh, you know what, never mind, I'm not gonna do it. So the determination is important because it's gonna help you to get through it and get to the end.
Okay. Okay, determination to get through. I'm going to also attach to that determination Determination to not let someone take your joy from you. Determination to not let somebody cause you to move through life with fear. And I'm just going to add that because what we didn't talk about is what happens in that moment as this conflict is happening, and then all the things that happen afterwards. Because maybe you didn't say what you wanted to say, and you recycle that over in your mind over and over again, and you beat yourself up. Or maybe the anger that you have towards this happening to me, why did it happen to me? And every time you see a cop moving forward for the rest of your life, you duck your head down or just try to move out of their way. I'm talking about that fear and that joy that sometimes can carry itself or be attached to that moment depending on what your mindset is or was. Does that make sense? Talk to me, y'all.
I mean, we can put one more, maybe just determination on your goals. Like, you don't want to get distracted from other events. Just focus on your goals. If you plan to study with your friends, just focus on that part. Other thing than that, you can just ignore them, especially those negative experience.
Say that last part again.
Sorry?
You said you can't ignore. I didn't catch that last part. After you said you can't ignore, then you said something else after.
Just ignore the negative experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we can, if we forgive. If we don't forgive, it's gonna stay there in your space, waiting for something else to trigger it releasing itself, and you doing something, stupid based on something that happened to you years ago. In my opinion, I've seen that happen where someone feels powerless in a situation and they never really let it go, right? So it's just almost like it's a situation ready to happen, a reaction ready to happen later. Someone does something slightly in that same direction.
Yeah, so I personally feel when you get in trouble, especially someone else does not understand what you are doing. It's not that important it is important to explain yourself, but if they are not willing to listen and they have, especially they are just to put you in trouble, they just intend to do that. I kind of feel like, if you try to argue with them, it just makes I feel like I be the stupid one because I'm wasting my time just to do these meaningless things. Especially when the consequence is not direct to, it's not toward the positive way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all have to have the wisdom to figure out when to say something and can it be effective or not. And I think that's what you're talking about now, wrestling with that aspect of that.
Yeah. So I read a sentence saying, if someone argue with your statement and you get mad, that means they are attacking to your weakness. But if the situation gets converse, like if you are saying, or if someone is arguing with 1 + 1 = 2, they say, oh no, 1 + 1 = 3. You won't really reply them because you think, oh, it's meaningless. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. So, I feel like I've always tried to not only learn from my experiences in life, but learn from other people's experiences too. And I can say that I've been messed with on every college campus that I've been on. But one of the things that I really learned when I was an undergraduate at Berkeley in the chemistry department was I was the only black, undergraduate student in the department, even though I wasn't officially a chemistry major. There was no grad students that were of color, and there was one black postdoc, so somehow we found each other. And what he told me about his experience getting his PhD, and I'm not gonna say the school that he went to, but it was a school in the Midwest, and he talked about how the people in his lab, the chemistry lab, turned on him. And I'm kind of like, turned on you? Like, what's up? What happened? He's like, yeah. He said, my advisor, because brother was smart and he was determined, and he used to like go into the chemistry library, look up reactions, and his chemistry was working. And his advisor was like, how'd you figure that out? And he said, oh, well, I went to the chemistry library, did this and that. And he was like, but how did you figure it out? So I'm like, okay. Because anyway, anytime someone's telling me something, I put myself into their situation and I ask myself, what would I do, right? So I'm there with them. He's like, yeah, he goes, so the people in my lab, they started turning on me. I had to lock my experiments up at night, so people wouldn't sabotage my reactions as they were running overnight. I'm like, damn, okay. He said, it was just me. So then I'm like, I said, he goes, and on top of that, he goes, I wrote up 2 scientific papers. He said, my advisor never sent them for publication. I'm like, what? Huh? Then he says, I finished my thesis. Everybody on my thesis committee signed my thesis, but my advisor. Technically, I don't have a PhD because they haven't signed my thesis, and it's been a couple years. And I'm like, I don't know if I could, I'm sitting here, I'm like, how much strength someone has to have to go through something like that, right? And I'm like, I don't know if I could navigate that. I feel like I'm strong, and I feel like there's a lot that I could put on my shoulder. I don't know if I could get through that. It was the first time I think I ever heard someone talk about a situation that they went through, and in my mind, shit. So when he finished at Berkeley, his postdoc advisor emailed his advisor at the school he got his PhD and said, you will sign his thesis right now and fax it to us or email it to us right away, or we will take you to court and we will sue you. Then he signed it. And he's like, Fred, this is how people may view you when you go to grad school as a person of color. And my advice to you is, you can't take what people do to you personal. It's not about you. It's about them projecting their issues onto you. And if you take it personal, he's like, they did that situation, they go home, they're sleeping real good at night. But 4 or 5 or 10 years later, you're still recycling that. And you're taking their power, your power away from you. So he's like, just forgive them. Let it go. They know not what they do. And then they can't take your power from you anymore. So I'm just sharing that as just a point of information, something to think about, because things did go down for me when I was in grad school, and I was able to take that advice and navigate that in an accordant way that allowed me to have positive things happen from it. But sometimes it's easy, especially when someone's clearly doing something to you that's not cool, to be like, it's all on them, versus maybe my lesson is learning forgiveness. Maybe that's the lesson that I learned. Talk to me, y'all. What y'all thinking? Yeah, we going there. We ain't got nothing to do today. We just chilling on a Friday. What's up? Where you at, Tom?
I think what trains highly emotional people do is to respond instead of react. If people mistook me, I won't just run into a self-defensive mode, using just like react so irrationally. But if you try to respond, means you gotta step back and think, why is he doing that, and what should I take to better de-escalate the situation. That means I won't let him take the power from me. I take charge of my own power. That's what respond means.
I like that. How to respond and not react. But how do you get to response from react? When you feel that energy brewing up,
It's
right?
That's
But before you react, how do you?
I think you gotta have some sort of training that to resist that urge to to burst out with whatever the action you came with. And like I said, to respond, you gotta step back and to rethink the situation. Like, what if
So view it from a higher perspective. I'm trying to translate for you. Talk to me.
Yeah, it's like to step back, resist from like impulses or yeah.
Anything else? How do we make sure that when the situation hits us, we don't react to it, we respond?
So for me, well, I can't feel the boost of anger from me, but when I feel that, I always focus on the situation. Like if such thing happened on me, maybe I will focus on the sentence the police officer saying. So maybe I can find some logic mistake from there, or from the moral perspective, or from the law perspective. So I know, because I know if we react directly, well, it's gonna put the situation getting worse. And
Okay.
like, I don't want to go home with a sad face and to see my mom. So that's why,
Find something to focus on.
yeah.
I mean, I like both of these points. I'm gonna get to the one that's the elephant in the room. Take a deep breath. A couple of them. Just take a deep breath. Like, what you're trying to do is, this is the trigger, and this is you reacting to it. You want to create space. So just taking a deep breath can give you a couple seconds to be like, let me collect my thoughts before this person stepped on my shoe and I'm about to go off on them, right? Like, I'm just saying that taking that deep breath, and a couple of them, is sometimes necessary to give yourself some space between you reacting and you responding to it. All right? So, all right, let's move on, because you guys like to talk a lot, and it's terrible right here. We ain't talking about nothing, goddamn. All right, so what are the characteristics of someone with a powerless mentality during a difficult situation? And this is none of y'all, but it may be some people you observed in situations that were powerless, and you can just report back what you learned from it. What you thinking, Jasmine?
Acting like a victim.
Acting like the victim? Okay. And I've been observing some other people too, and take a hard exam, and the person comes out, how'd you do? It's the teacher's fault. First of all, they can't teach that well, they have a bad accent, then there's parts of the exam that they covered. They didn't cover that in class. Everything they're doing, it had nothing to do with what they actually prepared. It has to do with somebody else, because they want to be the victim. Anybody in virtual land, what you guys thinking? Go ahead, Vic.
I think another characteristic, like similar to what you said earlier, like blaming other people rather than like looking at what you did wrong and like actually like reflecting. And then also like kind of taking it personal almost like being emotionally reactive.
Okay. What are you thinking, Barbara? You got anything to add?
Oh no, I just agreeing 100%. That's so true.
What about you, Eduardo?
Is it the same case? You know, sometimes, no, let me, of course, I always want to say something, but, I wrote on the chat that, sometimes, it is a little difficult, at least for me, sometimes hearing, I have some problems hearing, but also understand the main idea, regarding what we're talking about. I understand we were, talking about this case of some person of color, and this is a topic that I really never like to talk too much about it. I will say why. Of course, I have to say why. And one of the reasons is because for me, it makes no sense at all the way I see it. Unfortunately, I see the word some way, and most people see it in a different way. But for me, talking about some scenario where somebody, some person of color, it is a reality that many that things happen, unfortunately. But for me, I never look at anybody uh, from the point of you are a person of color or you are not, because for me you are everybody is the same. It's not about the color of your skin, it's about your behavior. And I've seen good and bad behaviors, I mean, on anybody. It's not about the color of your skin, it's about how you behave. I've known many uh, you girl are really really good people of color, and I've seen really really good Latinos and some other ones that are not. I've seen really it's not about what I mean is it's unfortunate that the story that you were saying that somebody didn't want to sign the final project for this guy, I believe because he's a person of course. I mean, actually, the person that did not win a sign, yeah, that's an explicit uh, a scenario of racism. I mean, that should not happen. That should have been taken to court or to, I mean, somewhere. I mean, but for me, I don't really want to give any advantage to. Listen, this is for me. This is a I see everything politically, because our problem today is politically. I don't like politicians at all, but I really like one guy, the ex-president of Uruguay. He is on the left, and I don't like that he loved this the Cuban dictator, Venezuelan dictator, and so many other dictators. But he's a brilliant guy. He's a brilliant mind. And he said our problem is politically. And what I see is I really hate hypocrisy. As a person who loves science, I like to be true all the time. And I am not perfect, and I'm not gonna have the truth, or I'm not gonna know everything or be on the true side all the time, because we make mistakes, but I always try to. And then, yeah, nowadays, everybody just go with the flow, and, oh, this is politically incorrect. Then we cannot say it. Oh, no, I try to say what I believe is true, and I will work hard on try to find the truth about what I'm gonna say. Then I say it. It's I mean, I don't want to hurt anybody's feeling, but I mean, as a person that loves science, I need to be on the true side, you know, and uh,
So what I'll say is this. No, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. It's I'll just say that, you know, and I mentioned this at the very beginning, and you might have been online. I said at the end of the day, whatever happens to you in your life is meaningless. You have to add meaning to it. And you can add meaning to it in a way that's positive, where you learn something from it or not. And some of the things we're talking about, they're difficult things to talk about. They're not easy things. Like they're more gray than black and white in some ways, depending on how you grew up, what your life experiences are, and all the other things that go along with that. Right? But at the end of the day, if you want to think about it from a science standpoint, right? Because, you know, we are students of science, and just know that I'm making this up, but it's the way that I see things, and I like to make stuff up, right? I can admit it. But if you just think about, we have physical laws. We learned about that in physics. We know if we drop something, it's going to fall at 9.8 meters per second. We know what the speed of light is. We know that, like, you know, all these things are the way that our universe is created. And it's in a very structured way. We have these physical laws, right? We know that a positive charge and a negative charge will be attracted to one another. Correct? But we also have spiritual laws. And spiritual laws, for example, one of them is likeness attracts likeness. So if you're really positive, you will attract other people around you that are positive. If you're really stank, you will have people who resonate towards you with that stank energy. Am I lying? Talk to me, y'all. So, if you are resonating at this frequency, whatever it is, we're just going to say it's frequency 106.1, right? And 106.1 has a lot of positives to it. That's in your aura or your energy space. But it also has a little bit of negative in there, based on your life experiences. So if something happens to you, and the part of this red that's negative is giving you an opportunity to learn that lesson, to heal that, to neutralize it, then you can make a decision in that moment based on what happened to you to let this go, forgive, or grow from it, or not. And it's going to stay there. It's not going to go nowhere. But we each have a chance to make that decision each time anything happens to us in every second of the day in the now. So, Barbara, go ahead. What do you think?
Yes, I agree. And there is something I want to add is like, I don't want to ask for revenge, you know, for the people who were mean to me, for the people who did not know what they were doing. But I want my results to actually prove it, like to prove that I was capable, to prove my truth, to prove who I am, you know?
Yes. So at the end of the day, anything that happens to you is always all about you, and your power is how you respond to it. That's where your power lies. You can't control what happens outside of you. You can try to. You can say, I'm going to live in this gated community with all these security guards. I'm going to make sure that my kids go to a private school that has fences on it and no one who's poor can go to that school. You can do all these other things, and then, you know, you go to the mall and there's a mass shooting. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, security doesn't exist in nature. It exists nowhere in nature does security exist. And we don't have control. Your control is really centered around your ability to surrender in that moment and go with the flow and connect to your wisdom and find a way to grow. Talk to me, y'all. There's a whole lot of controversy happening around here. Go ahead.
I think you need to be prepared for the unexpected, and that consists of your emotions and also kind of like reflecting and analyzing your past experience with something and looking at a positive outcome, whatever it is, you know. In regard right now as a student of science, let's just say if something doesn't work out, whether it's an exam or a class, you know, and whether it is majority of your fault or even someone else's, a professor, or it's a new course that you're taking, you need to have a positive mindset.
I agree. Now, thank you for sharing that. And I wrote down, one of the words you said, self-reflect. We got to spend time, trying to understand. And you don't want to brace for something negative happens, because then you put that thought out there and you add energy to it, right? So, but at the same time, when you reflect on it and you get to a place of neutrality with it, then it doesn't have the same amplitude or weight behind it. And you still can be potentially prepared if something like that happens. But I don't ever like to put my stuff on other people or place it in their space and have to be sticky to them, where now all of a sudden you're walking around with fear and it's not even your stuff, it's someone else's stuff. And sometimes as parents, if you're blessed to have kids and want kids someday, you have to be very aware of not doing that to your kids, placing your fears on them. All right, so let me see, I think we're gonna go through this one more exercise and then we're gonna close out. All right, so you're a student in college taking a second semester of organic chemistry. You are doing well in the course and have the opportunity to work in a research lab doing real experiments. For some reason, you don't get along with your teaching assistant for your lab section. You realize that he is jealous of you because you are about to publish a paper and he is struggling with his experiments. While doing a lab report in a study group for the class, you come across a challenging problem that no one can do. You take the problem to the grad student in your research lab and you figure out a way to synthesize the compound using unconventional methods, meaning using experiments that you were not taught. You share how you solved the problem with your study group and turn in your lab report. Your TA sees that everyone in your study group did the problem the same way and accuses you of cheating. He tells you he's going to give you a 0 on the lab report. What is your approach to deal with the situation? Vicky?
I feel like I'd take it to the professor. I wouldn't confront like the TA, because they just seem like spiteful and like they wouldn't want to work with you or like reason it out with you. So it's really not like a fight worth fighting, because like it's obvious that like the TA just fucking hates you. Yeah.
But when you go to the professor, what are you going to say? What is your argument?
I would say like everyone did this problem the same way because I figured it out, and they all can vouch for me that I figured this out on my own. And like now this TA is coming after me specifically and accusing me of cheating when everyone did the same thing.
Okay. Go ahead.
I think I will go to the professor, get a meeting with the TA and the professor, and prove them that I know how to do the problem, how to solve the problem, and explain, right, what happened. I learned that in other way, and I can prove that I can actually solve the problem.
But what if their argument is you and the group of people who did the problem the same way, you all was cheating, y'all was colluding together, right? So you can explain it to me, but what about everybody else in your study group? I'm just being controversial.
Can we not bring in the grad student as a witness?
A witness for what?
For teaching me?
Yeah, is that considered cheating?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So you bring the grad students and you say that you guys work together on this, and so it wasn't cheating.
Yeah, I would be.
But But I mean, if you know how to solve the problem, how that will be cheating? Because it will be cheating if you don't know and you just copy. But if
Okay.
you know how to solve it and you prove yourself that you actually know how to do things.
Should you have said how to solve the problem for the people in your study group, or should you just kept it to yourself?
Yeah, and I guess it depends on the rubric too, because like they could have parameters like you can't get help from other people or whatever.
All right.
Or just bring the whole study group and everybody proves themselves.
Anybody else got any thoughts?
But sharing would be cheating.
Not necessarily. If it's a
If-
so.
But
depending on the
I mean, there is sharing the way they solve the problem. So it's not like the actual problem. So if they all know how to solve the problem in that way, they could like prove themselves too. Like yeah, we just share the way to solve it.
Okay. So this did happen to me at Berkeley, and I did just confront the TA, and I was like, listen, I said, first of all, this is a lab assignment to do it as groups. I said, I know how to do this. I know how to synthesize it, and I shared it with the people in my group. I said, now if we have an exam and they can't solve the problem, then they lose. But this wasn't an exam. So, what's up? And you have to let it go. This ain't no damn exam, right? But again, part of these are when these situations happen, how do you figure out how to deal with it, right? How do you feel like how to move through it? Go ahead, Eduardo.
This is exactly what we were talking about, and you said how to respond and not react. If you are accusing me of cheating, I don't think I have to prove that I'm not cheating. I think you have to prove I'm cheating. You know? And
The proof is, in his mind, I'm looking at your problems, and I'm looking at the 5 people in your study groups, and you guys did this exactly the same way, with the reaction that we didn't teach you. So in his mind, he already has proof that you guys are cheating. He doesn't have the context about what happened, but he has some proof that everybody did this one problem the same way. No one else figured out a way to do this problem, and you guys used a reaction that no one else knew about.
it was a group assignment. That's why.
No, it's true. It is. It was a group assignment. But the bigger picture is that I really want you guys to think about when things come up in life, right? Like, we can't anticipate what's going to happen. We don't know what experiences you may have over the next 35, 40, or 50 years, or 60 years you guys are alive. But what is your relationship to obstacles when they're placed in front of you? And how do you manage that in a way where you can always learn something and have a positive outcome from it? Right? That's what I want you guys to think about. And if something difficult happens, how do you make sure you give yourself space to respond and not react? And if that's the only thing you take away from this workshop, in my mind, you're winning, right? Because Eduardo, we need to talk about these things sometimes so we can learn from each other's experiences in a way that we can grow. And a lot of times we don't like to share because it's difficult. I get it. But if anything that happened to me that can be perceived as in a negative way, if I can use that to empower others and myself, that's what's up. All right, any other last thoughts, comments before we kind of close things out? All right, you guys have a great rest of the weekend.